You know, my fave thing to do is dissect some of the comments that I'm getting, because at the end of the day, they're all educational opportunity if the person chooses for it to be. So let's go ahead and discuss a very long comment that I got on YouTube. While I don't usually bring comments over cross platforms, I think this one is worth it. Reading from my iPad. You are gorgeous, no lie, but the video is cringe because you are saying that you are the only ideal. Your insecurity is creating this content that says you know you're better than other people. Why is that always the message with body positivity? You are rejected, therefore it's automatically fat phobia. Other people have to deal with just not being someone's type, but you are special. If someone doesn't like you, they are wrong and a bias. Maybe it's this content that gets you rejected. And don't get it twisted. This video says, I got rejected, so I have to tell everyone I was the rejecter. So cringe. Think before you post. First, let's start with this video is cringe. I personally never give a fuck if anybody thinks anything that I do is cringe. So that's automatically not going to mean anything to me. That's number one. I am not the only ideal. My body size, body type, the way I look is not the only ideal. The purpose of unpacking and dissecting the beauty standard is to understand that there actually should not be an ideal. That the idea that there is an ideal is the problem, and that's the conversation that we're having. My insecurities have nothing to do with me thinking that I'm better than other people. My insecurities have more to do with the ways in which I have been taught to put myself into a box based off of the multitude of identities that I hold within the society. Because whether you'd like to discuss it or not, we have hierarchies amongst so many of our identities, whether we're talking about our ability, disability status, whether we're talking about body size, whether we're talking about weight, because those two are not necessarily mutually exclusive. I've realized a lot of you think you know what 200 pounds looks like all the time, and you really fucking don't. And it also has to do with our class. It has to do with the education we've received, right? All of these things. I think what you're trying to reference is when somebody tries to take what they're being bullied or ridiculed for and then turn that to then do further bullying and ridiculing, but that's not what we're doing here. And I think you also are a little confused about body positivity, because you said that body positivity's message is that you're better than other people, but that's actually not the original focus of body positivity, nor do I think it's the modern focus of body positivity. The historical focus of body positivity, and to be more specific, within fat liberation, was that we wanted to be able to receive the same rights and care that people in smaller bodies were receiving. That was the OG body positivity. The new modern body positivity, which is why we really use that fat liberation language, is more about love your body because your body deserves to be loved. And that's not a bad message whatsoever. I think that's a great message, but I think that what it's diluted from what it was when it was a fat liberationist agenda is that we're talking about receiving adequate and equitable care, meaning a lot of the research that we have on fat bodies is rooted in anti-fat bias. What is anti-fat bias? Something that is rooted in anti-blackness. What is anti-blackness? I don't think I need to explain that one. You're allowed to not like somebody, but what we're not allowed to do is completely say, I don't like this entire identity of people, because that's when the bias sets in. That's the bias that we're talking about. So when you say, oh, I just don't date disabled people, like that's my preference. No, you're being ableist. When you say, oh, I just don't date insert any racial or ethnic majority or minority here, that's just my preference. No, that's based on something. For me personally, I opt in future versions of myself because I'm in a committed relationship, which is so funny. A lot of y'all assume that I'm not. I've been in a committed relationship for 5 years. Anyways, in the future, if I were to no longer be with my partner, I have made the decision that I would never be in a relationship with a culturally white person again, but that is because that comes from political ideology, not from a preference of I just think white people are ugly, because that would be rude and wrong, and that is what we're talking about. Because as you mentioned, when other people aren't liked, it's just because they're not somebody's type, except for, like I said, we're not talking about oh, I prefer people who don't smoke cigarettes versus people who do. We're talking about, I don't want to date an entire identity group because I've deemed something is lesser than about that identity group. Because you can't say that it's about health when we know there are a multitude of fat people living in perfectly healthy bodies. It's about your anti-fat bias. That's the point. And you assume I'm getting rejected because you said it's this content that's getting you rejected. Rejected by whom? I'm in a committed relationship. Rejected by whom? And at that, the man I happen to be dating fits the fucking beauty standard for men. So who am I being rejected by? Because it's also not a man on the street. I'm constantly cussing them out to keep them away from me. And it's not a woman in the club because I'm constantly having to tell her, sorry, I'm taken. So who's rejecting me, boo? And I think before I post everything, because that's my responsibility as a content creator who also is propositioning themselves as an educator due to the fact that, I have a master's degree in education. So maybe think before you comment.